Greetings party peeps and welcome to my quick review of the most recent Slam Pro Wrestling League event, the first ever 20-man over-the-top rumble and Slam's first show at the Ainslie Football Club. Now before I get into the review, I do want to mention that I paid for the tickets both for myself and my partner. This isn't a sponsored post or anything, and I'm just doing this as a review, as a fan reviewing a wrestling show. Now it's no secret, I'm a huge fan of 𝗪𝗪𝗃, so the night could not get off to a better start when the business went one-on-one with Jimmy Townsend. You're always guaranteed a classic when 𝗪𝗪𝗃 is in the ring, but I was really impressed with Jimmy. I mean, 𝗪𝗪𝗃 is someone that's coming up to 20 years in the industry and has wrestled guys like Okada from New Japan, Pete Dunne from the WWE, and Jimmy absolutely took it to him in the capital. 𝗪𝗪𝗃 has been in some battles though and got the win, and while Jimmy might have got the loss, he seems to have got the respect of 𝗪𝗪𝗃 after that contest. Next up was the Natural Classics versus the Tough Stuff Crusade. Now after being crowned the inaugural Slam Tag Team Champions in a battle for the ages against the 𝗏𝗏𝗍𝒑𝒠𝗏 Tom and Stevie were up against the team of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 South and Tim Hayden. And if you haven't seen Tough Stuff 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 South in the flesh, the dude is a force to be reckoned with, and you can see why he's been a very dominant world champion in PWA. But the crowd loved the Tough Stuff Crusade, and you think that 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 South had been here since day one because he was getting so much love in his first appearance in Slam Pro League. But never underestimate the Natural Classics. And Tom and Stevie do what they do best: keep a lock on their championships. It was a hell of a win, and the Slam Tag Team Champions retained their belts. So there was some breaking news before the next match even began, with the Slam Board of Directors announcing that the first ever Slam Pro Wrestling Women's Champion will be crowned in 2023. And if there was anyone that would be a favourite to get that gold, it would be Kingsley. She has been a mainstay of the women's division in Slam, going to war with the likes of Rita Stone and former MCW and PWA Women's Champion Jessica Troy. This time round, Kingsley was up against Cherry Stevens, who was making her Slam debut. And I think a lot of people still think that Cherry is that newbie that's learning the ropes and studying her craft. Well, she's also the current Soul of PWA champion and the #1 contender to the Women's Championship in Melbourne City Wrestling, so Kingsley had her work cut out for her. But sadly for Cherry, she must not have got to the chapter on how to deal with the spilling of tea, because Kingsley certainly got the victory and a good boost in the Slam Pro Wrestling League's women's power rankings heading into the crowning of her first champion in 2023. Speaking of power rankings, the Slam Board of Directors overturned a suspension to #1 seed Tommy Knight, which meant that the Prodigy could have a shot against Mikey Broderick. Now for over 300 days, Mikey has taken on all comers, from Rocky Monero, Caveman Ugg, going to a Falls Count Anywhere hardcore bout with 𝗪𝗪𝗃 a few months back, but I have never seen him manhandled like he was by Tommy Knight. Now we've seen Tommy destroy opponents, and Mikey had to dig deep to get the win, but he got the chocolates in the end. Barely. After intermission, we saw a grudge match between the two staples of Slam Pro Wrestling when the full draw Dan Archer took on the Hope from the top rope, Luke Watts. Now Archer went into the match with some form. He's coming off wins against Lee Morrow and Super Bison, as well as being the winner of the Slam Masters Cup. But Watts hasn't had the best run of form because his last win came in March 2022. The crowd was heavily behind the Hope from the top rope though, as you'd expect, but some underhand tactics from Dan Archer got the win. And post-match, it got even worse, with Luke Watts getting an absolute savage beating from Archer before he had to be restrained by security. It was finally time for the main event, which saw 20 of the best pro wrestlers in Australia take part in the first ever Slam Pro Wrestling League over the top rope rumble. Now I won't go into too much detail here because it was an epically chaotic bout, but I will quickly run through the 20 competitors that took part, along with a few notes of interest. Now the competitors in order of entry were the Chief, Mick Moretti, Jimmy Townsend, Luke Watts, Tim Hayden, Genghis Kong, Stevie Philippe, 𝗪𝗪𝗃, Hugh Beauty, Xander Bolt, Vinnie Bronson, Josh from Hit 104.7, dressed up as Crofty, mind. Crofty straight after that, Super Bison, Cyclone Jr., Tom Philippe, Ricky South, Dan Archer, the Jaguar Kid, and at number 20, Tommy Knight. Now the final four men came down to 𝗤𝗏𝗔𝗠, Crofty, Tommy Knight and Luke Watts, and the first man eliminated was Jimmy Townsend, who was thrown over the top rope by Genghis Kong. Josh from Hit 104.7 also had the distinction of eliminating himself, and the Iron Man of the Rumble was the rapscallion Mick Moretti. When it got down to the final two, it was 𝗤𝗏𝗔𝗠 and Luke Watts to pick up where they left off from earlier in the night in a heavily emotional match, but it was Luke Watts with a shooting star press, followed by throwing 𝗤𝗏𝗔𝗠 over the top rope that got him the win, and a title match with Mikey Broderick at the next event. Once again, it was a great night out at the Ainslie Football Club and a terrific show as usual. And like I mentioned last time, I literally come up from Melbourne to watch these shows, and I even bring the missus with me too. So it's a great family-friendly night out. April 1st is the next event when Mikey Broderick defends the Slam Heavyweight Championship against Luke Watts. So do yourself a favor, do not just take my word for it, check it out for yourself.